First preseason game is under the belt for the Montreal Canadiens. A 2-1 loss on home ice to the New Jersey Devils. But heck, it's preseason. Who cares? We'll talk about Jake Allen and Caden Primeau, who shared duties. One pitched a shutout. The other one gave up 2 goals. How did the young defenseman look? We'll talk about Harris. We'll talk about Gooley. And we'll talk about Barron. Also, the revelation of the camp, who played on a big-time line and impressed a lot of people. The kid who went number 1 overall, Uri Slavkovsky. Did he pass the test or fail the test? Does it make a difference? And can we draw any conclusions after only 1 game? And Cole Caulfield picked up where he left off. All this and much more we'll discuss with Jared Book from Habs Eyes on the Prize. Everything Habs for him coming up on the Sick Podcast. I'm Marinaro.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, and Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast, brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense. Like me, by nature. Like me, the beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you go back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you. I'm going back to Lacage on Saturday, October 1st, because we have a big announcement. The Sick Podcast is about to get a whole lot sicker. What am I going to announce? Well, you're going to have to be there to find out. So if you're looking for a place to have supper on Saturday night, why don't you make a Lacage de Carry on Rue des Jockeys? To do so, RSVP at 514-731-2020. The Canadiens lose by a score of 2-1 in their first exhibition game of the 2022-23 season. Jared Book, what's going on?
I'm good, Tony. How are you?
Very good. The book is out?
On Cristobal Huet?
Yeah, the book on Cristobal Huet. Remember that one? All right. If there is a book on Jake Allen, there's not a lot of notes inside it. Jake Allen pitched a shutout tonight. In his period and a half of action, he stopped 18 of 18. Not the case for Caden Primeau, who stopped 11 of 13. He gave up the 2 goals. I thought Allen was really good.
Yeah, and look, the Montreal Canadiens, the difference between being 32nd in the league and being respectable is goaltending. And last year, for a large part of the season, they weren't getting goaltending. And a lot of that was because Jake Allen was injured. So getting a healthy Jake Allen, you know what you're going to get. Is it going to be vintage Carey Price? No, but it doesn't have to be. This isn't a team that's going to, aspire to do much damage. So, if they get average or good goaltending, they'll be fine. They'll probably
By the way, if I can, I already made up my mind after a period and a half. I'm on the whole suck hard for Bedard bandwagon after he scored a hat trick the other night, especially turning a defenseman inside out and putting that stick between his legs and scoring that highlight reel goal that we saw. Jake Allen's going to keep the Canadiens in games. They're going to end up picking up points in games where they have no business picking up points. I'm already on the trade Jake Allen bandwagon because I want Connor Bedard.
There's going to be a lot of people who think that, Tony. Listen, goaltending can be the difference between 32nd and 25th. And the difference in the odds of the lottery when that happens. But the important thing for the Canadiens is that their young players are the ones that are leading the way. And if tonight was any indication, you said Jake Allen, all the other young players, they'll be just fine.
Yeah.
Regardless of where they finish.
And young players can use preseason to make mistakes. And I think you saw there was the game-winning goal that Caden Primeau gave up. He's trying to hug the post, but obviously he doesn't do a good enough job of it. I don't know if he should have went down in that situation or not, but I mean, it's just that's a young player's mistake.
Yeah, look, Caden Primeau has. I don't want to say he has pressure on him because I think that the expectations that he's going to go to Laval anyway. but he wants to rebound. His last two really NHL seasons have been awful. I think his save percentage is in the 880s, if not lower. Just really bad. And the AHL playoffs were where he was really good, and kind of brought a little bit of hope that he'll be an NHL starter one day. The second goal, I didn't like it at first. It may have tipped out off a skate too, so you don't want to blame him too much. It's his first game action other than the scrimmage on Sunday. So I mean, look, Martin St. Louis said that there's still a battle for the backup job. He hasn't given it to Samuel Montembeault yet. I think that's a little optimistic. But Caden Primeau, he's not going to be judged on this preseason. Where he's going to be judged is if he goes back to Laval, how he plays there. And that's, that we say that about veterans, that preseason doesn't matter. I don't think it matters for Caden Primeau as long as he goes to Laval and plays well.
Well, you know what? Marty St. Louis was asked about his goalies after the game, and he said, listen, the only thing I could tell you is that Jake Allen is definitely going to be here. As for Primeau and Montembeault, it's going to play itself out at camp. So he's leaving the door open for Primeau. There's a chance to be that backup to Jake Allen if he wants it. All right, let's bring up the lines if we can right here on the Sick Podcast. Here they are. Owen Beck was in at center with Caulfield on his left and Hoffman on his right. We know that Nick Suzuki, of course, was injured in a collision with Joel Edmondson. He was back at practice earlier today, and he's probably going to be out for another week in terms of game duty. Kirby Dach centered the second line with Pitlick to his left and Uri Slavkovsky to his right. Philip Mesar centered the third line with Raphael R.V. Pinard on his left and Richard on his right. Misak centered the fourth line with Pizzetta on his left and Joshua Roy on his right. On defense, Matheson, Barron, Gooley, Harris, Fairbrother, Norlinder, and of course, the goalie split duty. So now let's go to a positive. It's number 8, Michael Matheson, who logged 25 minutes and 54 seconds of ice time, picked up an assist on Cole Caulfield's goal, which we'll get to in a second. And Marty St. Louis joked at the end of the game that at one point he said, I think I just gave Matheson way too much ice time for a preseason game. But then he said he looked on the other side and the Devils gave Severson over 26 minutes. So he said, I guess I'm not that crazy after all. But Michael Matheson, we knew he could skate. We knew he was mobile. We knew he had experience. We know he wants to play here. He got his wish. He looked very good.
Yeah, that's great news for the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, look, they were put into a corner by Jeff Petrie, right? They needed to move him. Kent Hughes wanted to move him, but only if he got the right deal. Michael Matheson is going to probably turn out to be a really good return because, you still have that hole on the right side, obviously, that Petrie left. But Michael Matheson is I don't want to say left-handed Jeff Petrie, but they play a similar style. They can both pick up big minutes, and I think he's going to be just fine for the Montreal Canadiens and really help whoever he plays with on the right. They've been putting Justin Barron with him. They have Jordan Harris and Matthias Norlinder playing on the right as well. Whoever he gets paired with, because I think they're going to split up Matheson and David Savard, is going to have a good experienced player beside them, and that's what the Canadiens need right now. It's all about surrounding your young players with good veterans, and that's what Michael Matheson will bring.
It's very easy. Matheson's going to get, Matheson will be on one defense pairing, David Savard will be on another defense pairing, and Joel Edmondson will be on another defense pairing. The big question is, how many kids can make this team at the same time? Because you would think that Chris Weidman is going to be on this team as well. That would be 4. And so do 2 kids make it to make 6, or do 3 kids make it to make 7? Let's not forget Corey Schooneman. So I would think that your number 7, you'd either want it to be Schooneman, who's 26 years old, or you'd want it to be Chris Weidman, who's over 30. If that's the case, 2 young defensemen are going to make this team, Jared. not 3.
Yeah, and you know what? That's not a bad thing. Look, Laval is going to be really good this year. If you want to give, guys like Matthias Norlinder or Justin Barron 20, 25 minutes a game in the AHL,
Well, let's say it right
there's no
away.
harm.
Norlinder's not going to make the Canadians. We could say that right away. Not this year.
I don't think so. And I think he needs to get his confidence up. There's no problem with him going to the AHL.
You could take him to the bank, Jared.
Get him 25 minutes in the AHL. Get him power play time on the first power play unit. That's what he needs right now. Get him to touch the puck. We've seen the Canadians put young players in the past in places that they don't succeed. I mean, you saw it with Cole Caulfield at the beginning of last season, where they just were asked to do too much. There's no harm in putting Matthias Norlinder in the AHL. He wasn't NHL ready last year.
And he's not this year, Jared. He's not this year.
And that's fine. He's 22 years old. He doesn't have to be. He doesn't have to be Caden Gooley, who's, yes, younger than him, but Caden Gooley was a top 15 pick, a top 16 pick. Like, he doesn't have to be NHL ready. Yes, at a certain point you want to see more, but let's come back to this at the end of the season. Matthias Norlinder is not worrying me right now. That he's NHL ready or not, that doesn't make a difference to me. He's not, and that's fine.
Okay, so Jordan Harris was a -1 tonight. Caden Gooley was a -1. Justin Barron was even. Now, one game is not going to decide who makes it and who doesn't make it. My personal opinion, I thought Harris and Gooley looked more steady than Barron. I just thought that Barron, when the forecheck was on, there was some indecisiveness in some of his plays. I thought it was going like, even though he's fleet of foot, he can skate. I thought it was just going 1 second too fast. I'd love to have your opinion on this one.
Yeah, you know what? That's something that even if you look back at last year, he played 5 games in the NHL. You can say the same thing about him last year in the NHL. Even in the AHL, there were some parts where when he's under pressure with the puck, there were problems there. And I think that Justin Barron will be fine. I don't think that, again, he's someone who was drafted the same year as Caden Gooley. We've heard his names with the World Junior. We hear about these kids for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
And we think that they've been around forever. I mean, Kirby Dach is only 21 too. So
yeah,
it's one of those things where you hear these kids' names forever and you're like, why aren't they in the NHL yet? But Justin Barron is going to be good. I think he's going to be fine. And you know what? Competition's good. You don't want guys to get places by default. And you could argue that that's why, guys like Victor Mete were brought up to the NHL way too fast. Guys like Jesperi Kotkaniemi were brought up too fast. There was no one to take those spots from them. And I think that in a case like Justin Barron, Harris, who are playing the right side, is a good thing, because at the beginning before camp started, people were like, oh, Justin Barron's the only right side defenseman on this team other than David Savard. He's going to have to play top 4 minutes. Jordan Harris has really helped that, and that's a good thing. Internal competition is good, and the key is that these guys are going to be in the NHL in 2-3 years. It doesn't matter if it happens this year or not.
If you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, comment SICK, SICK. If you love the podcast, it's our way of feeling the love. And if you're listening on audio, please leave us a 5-star review. It's always fun to get those. And write the comment SICK, SICK. And once again, it's our way of feeling the love. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is growing every day, and it is free. That's the beauty of it. You talked about Kirby Dach before. At one point, Dach was on the ice. Slafkovsky was on the ice. They were on the same line, of course. And Caden Gooley was on the ice. And I'm like, wow, the Canadians are really getting bigger here. But, Dach didn't have great chemistry with Slavkovsky tonight. But I did think he had great chemistry with Pitlick. They were finding each other on a number of occasions. They look good together.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because Pitlick's a guy who's going to battle for minutes, right? There's a lot of guys on this team where you have them in the NHL because either they have to clear waivers or their salaries, or there's lots of reasons why they're going to be in the NHL, but you don't know who's going to match up with who, and especially Josh Anderson is injured right now, so he's going to probably come back. You have Paul Byron who's out right now, so yeah. There's playing time to be had, and a guy like Pitlick, if he can get chemistry with Dach, that guarantees you some playing time. So it's good to see, and I think it's tough at camp because you had the 4 groups in the scrimmages. Then now they're cutting down to basically 2 groups with preseason games. It's tough to get those kind of chemistries, especially when there's so many injuries that you're not really getting the full lineup that you're expecting, right? So, I think that it's interesting that Dach played with Pitlick and Slavkovsky, because I think it's as much a test for Pitlick as it was for Slavkovsky, and I think Pitlick is a guy that's kind of forgotten a little bit. I mean, when he wasn't given the qualifying offer, a lot of people thought he was going to be gone anyway, right? So it's interesting to see what's happening there. But yeah, I think Kirby Dach is a guy that's going to really have an opportunity to really grow in this offense in a way that he didn't have in Chicago. And a lot of that is because there's no Jonathan Toews in front of him. A lot of that is because there's no expectations. And a lot of that is because just the coaching staff is focusing on development. And I think that's going to be very important for him.
And now on Slavkovsky, I vowed to show patience towards him and vowed to call anyone out who doesn't. Okay. I really don't want anyone to put pressure on the 18-year-old. It's already hard enough to play in Montreal. It's already hard enough to play in the National Hockey League, and especially when you're 18. Having said that, here I am, paid for my opinions. And so one game is not going to change anything. And Marty St. Louis handled it great at the end of the game, saying, I thought he was just fine. It looked like he was having fun out there. And at one point, we got a bench penalty, and he looked at me and he said, should I go serve it? And I said, why not? And he had a laugh. But because we have to give an opinion on the game that was played, Juraj Slafkovsky didn't look NHL ready in this first preseason game.
No, I mean, I don't think so. But you know what? Again, I said it with Norlinder, who's 22, Slavkovsky's 18.
Yeah.
It's if he goes to Laval to start the season, is it really that bad of a result? I don't think so. I think that's a good thing. That the fact that he's not pushed into it. You look at the game tonight. Anthony Richard played probably better than Slavkovsky. And would you rather have Anthony Richard on a fourth line than Juraj Slafkovsky? Yeah. You don't want Juraj Slafkovsky on the fourth line. So send him to Laval, give him 20 minutes. It's still a long camp. In the words of Jesperi Kotkaniemi, when he was struggling early on, he said, I'm going to get better every day. I'm sure Juraj Slafkovsky is going to get better every day. But at
Jared,
the same time,
I've always thought that Slafkovsky would start the season in Montreal. But the one thing that I did say is I would have liked to have seen him start on the third line and maybe play with a Dvorak and a Gallagher. Based on what we saw at the Red versus White game, Dvorak was playing with Gallagher and Dadonov. That might be something to look into. Having said that, there's several reasons why I don't like Laval for Slafkovsky, but the biggest reason is that it might affect his confidence. Having said that, the more I think about it, if his confidence is going to take a bigger hit being in Montreal and not producing, and I have said this, if Slafkovsky's on the third line with Montreal, I'm all for it. If he's on the fourth line in Montreal, I'd rather see him play on a top line in Laval than play on the fourth line in Montreal, where fourth lines are energy lines, and you just use the body, you try and make hits to change the momentum of a hockey game. You take hits and receive hits, and I don't want to see him just be a guy who hits.
Yeah, and you know what? You mentioned confidence. The good thing is I don't think Juraj Slafkovsky is a guy who lacks any confidence. So I think that's a good thing. I think he has the right attitude for Montreal and dealing with the highs and lows. You saw it at the draft. As soon as the draft happened, even before it, when he said that, my meeting with them tasted better than a steak. He has that kind of inner confidence that you want to have.
He didn't have the interview. He didn't have the one-on-one interview. So
yeah.
What was it? No, he didn't go to dinner with them.
Yeah, he didn't have to.
But he had an interview with them,
and
he said my interview with them tasted better than the dinner.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that's something that, the one thing about this administration so far, and ever since Jeff Gorton and Ken Hughes got hired and they brought in people, there's a real focus on player development, and I think that is something that one thing that keeps sticking out in my head is Mark Bergevin kept saying, we give all the players the same tools and it's up to them. But player development is not giving out players the same tools. Player development is about giving each player the right tools for them. And I think that that's an approach. And Martin St. Louis has talked more about development than any coach I've ever heard, even in junior or the AHL, where development is usually more focused. And I think that that's something that no matter what, they're going to do what's best for him. And I don't think he's going to be playing 8 minutes a game in the NHL just to say that, oh, look, our first overall pick is in the NHL. I think that they're going to be smarter about that. And listen, he might play himself onto a roster spot. There might be other injuries. I'm not saying he's definitely not going to make the team, but he's going to grow into this role like this team is going to grow. And it's okay that if he doesn't go in the NHL right away, the last first overall pick to not forward to not go back to, right away as a forward was Matt Sundin, and he turned out pretty good. So I think that there's a lot of things that you have to be. We can't compare Uri Slavkovsky to other first overall picks. We have to compare him to the rest of the players in the 2022 draft, and that's the reality of a kind of more down year in terms of immediate prospects. But it's a long preseason. There's still 7 games to go. He's probably going to get another game in a couple of days, either in Toronto or when they play the Jets. So you know what? He's going to get lots of opportunities. He's probably going to play with different people and maybe see where he fits in this lineup.
Speaking of young players in the draft, Philip Mesar was the Canadiens' 2nd pick. Owen Beck was the Canadiens' 3rd pick. I thought they both had a better game than Slafkovsky. Mesar wasn't good in the circle. He played center. He was at 25%. But I think we've realized, he's a better winger than he is a center. At least I think so anyway. But he did have a couple of shots on goal and a couple of flashes where he had the puck in close. He waited. He made a move. He got a shot away. It was a good stop. I like what I saw there. Owen Beck, 59% in the faceoff circle. He had 3 shots on goal. Marty St. Louis talked about him at the end of the game and saying, you know what? This guy had a good game. And Jared, he does all the little things right. He really appears to be a student of the game, this Owen Beck.
Yeah, you know what? Oh, I've been following Owen Beck since the draft. I wrote his profile for Eyes on the Prize. I've been paying attention to him. And everything he's done so far, whether it's rookie camp, whether it's development camp, whether it's training camp now, he's just been impressive. And he's not the fastest, he's not the most skilled, but he's always in the right place. He always makes good decisions, and he wins faceoffs. And it's funny, but we talked about rushing prospects and not being NHL ready, but his game is just NHL ready. And I'm not saying he's going to start the year in Montreal.
No, he's going to go down to junior hockey. He'll dominate, and I think he's going to end up cracking a spot on the World Junior team.
Oh, I think he's going to definitely be on the World Junior team. I think he's going to be very good. And I think that, in a year from now, we're talking about Owen Beck as a shoo-in for the NHL roster.
A year from now, really?
Wow. Yeah, I think he's going to be in the real fight for a roster spot. Depending on obviously how things shake out. Yeah, depends who else they get. If they get somebody named Connor Bedard, I don't think that I think that spot's going to go to somebody else. But
I want him. I want him badly, man. I want him real bad. I think the Canadiens need him as much as I need some fitness equipment. MatrixHomeFitness.ca. I'm going to give them a shout out. They already set me up with a treadmill and a rower. Hopefully the bike is on its way soon. Bring it home. Discover a club quality workout and the comfort of your own home. Visit MatrixHomeFitness.ca. A bike will last me a long time. I'm not going to break it the way Uri Slavkovsky broke the one at the Habs Combine. All right, okay. Cole Caulfield, he picked up where he left off. I thought he looked really, really good tonight. I thought he looked real good in practice a couple of days ago. 5 shots on goal, including a laser off a pass from Hoffman. Man, wow, what a goal he scored tonight.
Yeah, you know what? If this team wins games because Cole Caulfield does Cole Caulfield things, that's a good thing. Don't worry about draft order. As long as guys like Caulfield and Suzuki, when he comes back, Gooley, if he makes team, guys like that, Dach, if they're playing well, that's a good season for the Canadians, no matter what happens. And
Yeah, for sure.
Cole Caulfield, if he can have a full season, maybe not on the whole pace he had with Martin St. Louis last year, but if he can have a full season where he's scoring 30 goals plus, that's all you can ask for. And I think that he's a guy that if he can take that next step, if Nick Suzuki can take a little bit of a next step, that makes the rebuild go a lot faster than some people might expect. Because there is no rebuild. If Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield don't take the next step, there is no rebuild. It's dead in the water. So those are two things. And Cole Caulfield starting off like he did today is great. And you mentioned the pass from Mike Hoffman. If Mike Hoffman can start playing like Mike Hoffman used to play, I remember today that he missed all of preseason last year.
I think he's going to be on that line to start the season with Suzuki and Caulfield.
Yeah, I think that's the way it's setting up. Yeah,
at least absolutely. I think they're going to play together on home ice. On the road, I'm not so sure because you have last line change. You might want to have someone more defensively responsible, or they might not care. They might just play offense, and whatever happens, happens, because at the end of the day, like you just said, if you're not going to make the playoffs, you might as well give yourself the best chance of picking number one in the draft and getting a guy like Connor Bedard. All right, so in ending, Jared, nothing decided for the young players after one preseason game, right? We're talking about Gooley, we're talking about Harris, we're talking about Barron, we're talking about Slafkovsky. Nothing decided yet, correct?
Nothing decided, but if you had to ask me today, I think Caden Gooley's an NHL player. Caden Gooley is so good. Like his skating is improved, and if a guy that big can skate like that, it's almost unfair.
There's a great pick by Trevor Timmons, by the way, who you take a look. Caden Gooley's a Trevor Timmons pick. Jordan Harris is a Trevor Timmons pick. Cole Caulfield is a Trevor Timmons pick. There are others, Raphael RV Pinard, we'll see what happens to him at a much lower level, of course, and Joshua Roy is another, and Misak is another, and the list goes on and on. But, Trevor Timmons did some good things as the director of amateur scouting for the Montreal Canadiens for the longest time as well. So we'll keep that in mind. Until then, the Canadiens have a day off on Tuesday, and they visit the Maple Leafs in Toronto on Wednesday night. Jared, thanks for doing this, bud. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me, Tony.
Once again, you're very welcome. Follow us on YouTube. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's absolutely free. Marinaro, the Sick Podcast with a sick host. We're going to have a sick season. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature, and Lacage. If the last time you went to Lacage was when the Habs won the Cup, it's time you went back to Lacage. The menu will surprise you.